Alright, MIS. I'm gonna assume that this is working. Alright, this is my second attempt to try to film a video for you guys. Okay? I previously did this for like 20-30 minutes. It didn't work out. Alright, so let's see if we can make this work. Check it out, okay? I want to move quickly here so that I get you guys the information you need. Alright, and don't waste your time, okay? What I want to do is just work through some simple examples here in Access. Alright, essentially focusing on the kind of queries that I think you're going to need, essentially for homework 7 and not so much for homework 8. It's going to involve this thing called aggregation, right, which we're going to get to on Monday, okay? There are notes posted, all right? X-Times notes are great for this, okay? And I'm actually using this database here. This is the Sports with Games database or something like that on Blackboard, and I'll post this for you guys. All right, you can work through this in the notes and follow along with different queries there. All right, I'm going to shy away from all of these queries, okay, so that you can use them on your own, right, and to kind of learn more if you want to, okay? All right, so I want to keep things really simple, okay? Let's get started with this. So check it out. First and foremost, right, what you have here with any database, okay, anytime you are getting started with a database, what you want to make sure to do is go to Database Tools, go to the Relationships pane, and get a handle on what you're working with, all right? Just like I've mentioned before in class, and et cetera, you see there's this like duplication of teams, teams_1, all right, what's going on with that? It looks like it's the same as this, okay? Don't be confused by that. Essentially what's happening is there's a multipath relationship. Access makes a copy of this teams table. It's a pseudo copy, it doesn't really exist. You can see there's only 4 tables, right? But we have these essentially 2 relationships, right? For every game, there's a home and away team, and it represents it this way, all right? So that's what's going on here. Okay, otherwise, it's really handy to have this open and up so that you can utilize essentially the names of attributes, you get your nomenclature correct, and you can also understand the relationship structure that you need in order to make this work, all right? So let's get started with some just absolute basics, right? To create any query, create query design, all right? I'm going to go ahead and close all this because I don't need it. It's opening up a design window for me. I'm going to go ahead and switch to SQL view, okay? Get this down here, all right? Now, what's going on here, how about we start off with just some basics, all right? Just getting some basic information from, say, the coaches table, right? We'll imagine what we're doing is like a recruiter, you know, kind of try to carry this recruiting motif throughout these queries and work that way, all right? So, for example, let's get some basic contact info on the coaches, okay? So, right, the basic format is always select from, end with a semicolon, right? Select what? Select attributes, okay? For example, let's do coaches dot first name, coaches dot last name, all right? From what? Obviously from coaches, okay? Notice here I've used the full delimiter for these attributes. That's the full delimiter is table dot attribute name, okay? It avoids confusion. You don't need it in every instance. For example, here I could get away without it, right? But if I were to include players as well, there's a first name and last name attribute in players, so you can't just write first name and last name without resolving which one you're talking about, all right? Get in the habit of it, it's a good habit. I'll show you a little trick here in a second to work with that. First, let's run this query, see what we get out. We get this, okay? Since I put in 0 constraints of any kind, what I should be seeing here, what I'd expect to see is all the coaches, okay? So if I go to the coaches table and open it, right, I can see that that's what I'm getting, right? They match up in terms of numbers. They're the same number of coaches here as here, right? There's more rows here, or sorry, columns here, because I only included the first and last name here in the query. Makes sense, right? So, back to this. All right, let me introduce this little maneuver here, okay? There's this thing called an as, you know, it's a modifier, right? And you can use the as modifier and say, from coaches as C. Let's do capital C, all right? Watch what happens when I run this, though. It doesn't know what this is, all right? And again, this is that inner parameter value dialog box. What it really is, you can think of it almost as an error message. Unless you're specifically running a parameter query, it almost always means that you misspelled something. There's a typo somewhere. Okay, but this doesn't really look misspelled, right? So there must be something else going on. Turns out what it is, when I start calling coaches as C, it means I need to reference it as C, okay? So C dot first name, C dot last name. Let's see what happens. Boom. Okay, so that works. Cool. All right. Why is that useful? What do we accomplish? Just trust me for a second. We'll circle back later to see how this really does offer a lot of brevity. It makes this a lot shorter to deal with when you have to write out a bunch of attributes. It helps to not have to write out the entire table name every time. Okay? All right, cool. So look, this is the most basic query. Select stuff from tables, end with a semicolon. All right? Let's say we want to take it a little further. Okay? Let's put in phone number, right? I think I missed that in the first place, right? Always get in the habit of running your queries after every change to make sure they work. Okay? But let's say that we want to also introduce players, right? We're recruiting here. Okay, so let's say what we really want to see is we want to see the names of the players, right, along with the coaches so that we can find the players we're interested in, contact them, contact their coaches, set up a meeting, that kind of thing. Okay? So let's go ahead and add this in, right? I'm going to look ahead and introduce that modifier. So from P dot, let's say, first name, P dot last name, and P dot phone number. Cool. From coaches as C and players as P. All right? Easy peasy. Right? Go ahead and run this. What do I get? Well, it's a little strange, right? Maybe it's not what I expected. It's, I see a lot of repetition here in all the names, right? And these are the player names, right? Player names and phone numbers. These are the coaches' names and phone numbers. I don't know. What am I seeing? All right, you got to break this down. Okay, this goes along the lines of when you're running a query, right? Sometimes you get an error. You know you did something wrong. Other times it runs. It doesn't mean it's right, though. You really have to unpack what you're getting in terms of output. All right, so digging into this right here, I don't know. I see some repetition here. I see this repeats again. All these repeat. In fact, they look like they almost repeat the same number of times. It's kind of bizarre, right? I don't know. Maybe I can make this easier to analyze if I do a little bit of ordering, right? So let's say I want to do this alphabetically by, let's say, the player's last name, right? So just to be sure, when I run this, okay, what I get is all the players in order of their last names, right? And then the coaches are like this. But let's say within each player, right? So for all the Catherine Akongs, I want to see all of the coaches in order, right? I want to reorganize these rows to get them in alphabetical order. Really simple, right? Surprise. Okay, now what am I looking at? Well, I'm seeing Catherine, okay, goes from Derek Anderson to Steve Zion. And then Jessica goes from Derek Anderson to Steve Zion, and so on, right? And so on. So, looks like what's happening, right, is that all of the players are getting matched up with all of the coaches, right? In fact, what's happening here is called a Cartesian join, right? Because I put in no constraints whatsoever on my query, right? I just selected from coaches and players. See, Access doesn't really know what kind of combinations I want to see of coaches' contact info and players' contact info, so it makes literally every combination possible, right? So what I see in this query is every possible combination of coaches and players, okay? Right? And that's not exactly what we wanted, right? What we wanted is pretty obvious, right? We really want to know, for every player, I just want to know who their coaches are, right? Who are the coaches of the teams for which they play, right? Just taking a look over here, what I'm looking for is, for all these players, I just want to know, for the team that they play for, who are the coaches, right? Every player is only on one team, right? But every team could have more than one coach, right? Maybe like assistant coaches. Okay? So I want to know that. Okay? I want to know that. What I'm missing here, right, is perhaps obvious. I'm missing the relationship constraints. Okay? You've got to put those in explicitly. It's one of the most important things. All right? To make that happen, what do I need to do? Well, first off, let's take one look and realize that in order to make this constraint that goes from players to coaches, there's relationships that go through the teams table. So I have to introduce the teams table into this query. Okay? So from what? From teams is T. Now I can put in some relationship constraints by using the where clause. Where what? Where where P dot team ID, right, is equal to T dot team ID. Where do I get those from? Right here. Players dot team ID needs to be equal to teams dot team ID. Similarly, coaches dot team ID needs to be equal to teams dot team ID. Okay? So I need this condition and, just for formatting, spacing this out, and C.teamID is equal to T.teamID. Right? Simple enough. So I've got two conditions here, right? Where the team IDs are equal on players and the team IDs are equal between teams and coaches. Cool. All right. Those are the only coaches I want to see. Still ordering in the same way. Let's see what happens. Run that query and I get this. How does it look? All right. It's looking a little better. I'm definitely seeing variation, right? Okay, Jessica appears twice, right? Maybe there's a head coach, assistant coach kind of thing. Okay. This looks more reasonable, right? I don't have any reason to kind of reject this immediately. Notice that this is down from 300 rows before in the Cartesian join to only 25 rows, right? So you can see the issues that surround Cartesian joins, especially when you have perhaps thousands of rows, right? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and save this, right? I'm going to take this query. We'll just save this as I don't know, maybe 01 recruiting. Okay, recruiting 1. All right, it's going to pop up over here. All right, let's close this for now. What I want to do is just zero in on a few players, okay? So let's open up another query, get going with this, right? Start moving a little quicker, right? Select what? Let's do P dot and phone number, right? Again, we're recruiting, okay? Make sure that actually works. Cool, looks good, 25 records, all right, makes sense, don't see much repetition. Really important to get in that habit, all right? What I want to do, just looking and noticing in the players table, there's this rating thing. Sounds interesting. I want to try to find maybe the highest rated players, okay? Without really knowing what it is, for example, is it a rating from 1 to 10, some other scale, 1 to 100, what is it, right? Well, let's check it out. Pull in the rating. Oh wow, okay, it's actually text, right? It looks like it's letters instead. A's, B's, and C's, kind of like grades in our class, right? So we need to process this maybe differently than if it were numbers, all right? But let's figure out how to do that, okay? One thing we could do, just to try to get off the ground, is ordering by the rating, okay? And if we hit nothing, right, it should go ascending, so from A to Z, and it does. Cool. Right, so if we wanted to see only the A-rated players, okay, we could try to take the top whatever using what we have already. It's a little bit of a messy way to do it. A better way would be to use a where clause to say where p.rating is equal to A, right? Let's see what happens when we run this. Hit run and error, right? Essentially, it's asking for a parameter, right? What is the value of A? It wants to know. This isn't a typo, we meant to type A there, but we meant for it to be, the stuff that we see in this attribute, right? But remember, if it's text, we need quotes. Okay, where the rating is A, we run that, and we get what we're looking for. All right, sounds good. So this is the contact info of all the A-rated players. Sweet. Okay. I think what we might want to do now is see this with the coaches, right? So let's combine this together, okay, and make as a recruiting kind of deal, right? And we'll highlight just a few other things here, okay? So let's go ahead and organize this a little bit. Since they're all rated highly, right, I'm only looking at A-rated players. Why do I need to include that in here, yeah? Just notice that because I'm selecting from players, I can include this attribute here, even if I don't select from it. So I run that, and I still get this. It's all the same, all right? But let's say we get that for the players, and then we also want to get that same coach's information. Right, just like this. From coaches is C. That looks like it worked. Okay. But same issue as before. We know what to do. So let's throw it down, right? We already have this condition here, but we also need relationship conditions, right? Where rating is equal to A, and is it team or team's ID? Got to check this, and I see it's team ID. Team ID is equal to T dot team ID, right? And even further, where P dot team ID is equal to T dot team ID, right? I just need to go back and add in teams is T, checking that. All right, looking way better. Got 12 records, okay? Still a little bit of repetition here, right? And that is happening because, right, the A-rated players, right, they have more than one coach on their team, okay? So really, it's a little bit redundant, right? It's not exactly what we want to see. I wonder is there anything we could do to maybe improve on this? Take a look at our tables, okay, and what we can see, there's kind of like basic stuff about the coach. There's also this weird little attribute here. Really, these last two things are really about kind of the whole sports aspect. Status. It's kind of a strange thing. I wonder what that even means. Let's go ahead and show the status as well of the coaches just to figure out what's up. C dot, right? Just to be clear, right? If I would have done that and hit run, it wants a parameter, okay? So it lets you know that you made a typo. Okay, now I get this, and I'm looking at it. Okay, and I see there's only ones and twos, right? So it seems like there's almost two coaches for every team that these A players are on, at least. And, yeah, probably what we're seeing here is that the number one is probably the head coach, okay? So let's go ahead and just select the head coaches, right? Because maybe those are the people to contact, yeah? You wouldn't want to contact the assistant coach. So now we have a lot going on here, right? What do we have? We have where player rating is A, and our relationship stuff, right? But also, right? Also, and maybe I'll put it up here because it's related. And coaches dot status equals 1. We run that. Data type mismatch, right? Even though before, when we ran this, okay, it looks like it's a number, right? It turns out it's not a number because it wasn't behaving like one. And we could find this out, of course, if we go to coaches, go to design view, right? This query is referencing coaches, so it's telling us we can't make edits, but that's not what we're trying to do. We just want to see what the deal is with status. Status is text, okay? So even though it looks like a number, it's actually text, and what that means is when we put this in, just as before, we need quotes, okay? So that's how you work around that data type mismatch error. Hit it run, Bam. All right, now we've got that. Okay, again, since we're selecting only that, we don't need to show it necessarily. Doesn't add more information. Boom, and what do we have here now? We have only 7 records, right? We have 7 records for recruiter, okay? We're down from 300, taking a naive approach, right? So this is the, we want to save our query. Say there's something like, creme de la creme, contact, right? Contact info for a recruiter of the best players. Right? These are the A-rated players and their head coach. Okay, this is who you want to get in touch with, right? It's who you want to get in touch with, right? Obviously, we can break this down in other ways if we'd like, okay? For example, let me show you a little bit about computed values. We try to go a little further with this right here, okay? So we also want to know the ages of these players, right? Because in here, I see that birth date is there, all right? So let's see what happens if we put in p.birth date. Run that. We get some dates, okay? And if we're unsure what we have, birth date is a date time field. Cool. So we know we need to operate with that in a specific way. All right. And we have certain dates here. Okay. Like maybe we're interested in the youngest, right? We're interested in the youngest. So maybe we just want to grab some people out of 87. All right. How would that work? Well, one way to do it would be to say where p dot birth date, okay? Well, one way to do it would be to say it's less than or equal to, let's just say, strictly less than 1, sorry, I need the date quotes, 1 dash 88, and p dot birth date, okay, is greater than or equal to 1, sorry, quotes again, 1 dash 1 dash 1987. Let's see if that works, right? This, of course, would not work, right, because we're missing a little bit, right? What are we missing? Let's see what happens. Syntax error, right? Missing operator in this expression. It tells you what's going on. All right, so the birth date, this, and that P rating, you say, there's a, okay, that looks like where the error is happening, right? Because what I don't have is another and, right? I have to have an and between every command here, all right? And let me go ahead and just space these out, perhaps, to make it easier to read. Again, I recommend you work on your own formatting to make sure this works, right? Just to keep it consistent. We'll do it like that, right? So essentially we have we're grabbing kind of like the best players, you know, the head coaches. These are the relationship constraints on the database themselves that come directly from these connections here, right? And now we're throwing in constraints on the birth date of the players to grab only those players who are essentially born in 87, right? Before 88 and after January 87. But let's see what happens. We do that and we get these two, right? We get these two. So that's cool, right? That worked out for us. But maybe this isn't, you know, perfectly helpful. It might be better to work in terms of age, okay? And that brings us up on the issue of doing computed values, all right? So a couple things here. What I want to do is introduce a new attribute, all right? And I need to make a computation of it though. If I want to compute the age of a player, right, and I know their birthday, right, it's simple matter, right? If I know what today's date is, and I subtract their birthday from that, that amount of time is going to be how old they are, yeah? So, how would you do that in Access? Well, first off, right? We got to use some parentheses. We got to start doing a little math, okay? The key here is that there's a specific command. It's an operator. It's called now, right? Now with a parenthesis. That will give you the time right now, okay? Now minus p.birthdate, right? Because this is a date-time attribute, I can do this. Okay, and then divided by, it depends in different cases, but let's say 365 and see what happens. Boom. Okay, cool. So we get the same ages here, okay? Same thing before. We see they're 28.9, 29 years of age. Awesome. And we could format that if we wanted to, but it's not a big deal, all right? I want to highlight one thing really quickly. The first thing is this. What you see here at the top is expression 1000, right? It just defines as an arbitrary expression and it increments the counter. Okay, it's better to have an actual name for that, all right? But just like we did here, coaches as C, what we're going to do is say, I want that expression as age. Boom, and it changes there. Awesome. All right, we're making progress. We have this here now. And, okay, there's one other point to mention here, okay? Let's say I want to go and change this, all right? I want to change this constraint on the ages to now involve this new thing we made called age, right? Oh, but first let me do one other thing. I'm going to show you guys a different way, all right? A different way to do this operator, or this set of two constraints really, right? This and this is to say with birth date between, and now just drop this down, between that and that, except I have them a little backwards, right? So right between January 1st, 1987 and January 1st, 88. Okay, if we run that, we get the same thing, okay? So this between operator, you can find this in the textbook. It's another way to do that. Sometimes it saves you a little bit of extra work, all right? But returning, all right, what I want to do is I want to change this to be just in terms of what we have here, all right? So what you might think, the first thing that I'd think is to do, okay, age, right? Age, what were those ages, huh? Let's check. Age, I'm pretty sure, anyway, let's just do age less than 29, okay? Strictly less than 29. It might only grab the 1, huh? Right, but anyway, we run this. All right, what do we get? Age, inner parameter value. But wait, that's what we were told when we put in something that Access didn't recognize. That wasn't part of the actual tables or attributes that we were looking at, okay? So, all right, the thing to realize here is that you can't use the attribute modifiers within the same query. Only in a subsequent query that references this one could you use that. This is clearly different, exactly the opposite from the case here, right? The modifiers for these tables you can then use immediately, and in fact you have to, right, within this query, okay? But again, you cannot do this with the attributes, okay? Instead, how would you do the same thing, right? You would do that like this, where that is less than 29. When I run it, I get the 1 result. Yeah, I guess what I wanted was 30, huh? Yeah, not an extra. Okay, right, so this is what we get. Okay, this is what we get, and we've done a lot with this, right? In this query now, what we have going on, we have a computed value, right? This is when you are doing something with the attributes that you already have, okay? And, this doesn't involve any aggregation. This is just a simple function of this. And doing this mathematical expression, we can call it by some modifier, which names our column. We can also reference that in other queries, okay? But we can't reference it here. We have to use the full expression in what we do, all right? We figured out about naming attributes with the full delimiter. right, by using table.attribute_name, but we learned the hack of introducing modifiers for our tables to make them convenient so that we don't have to write out the name of the table every time. Yeah? You're welcome. Okay. Secondly, we learned that obviously we need to connect all conditions and constraints with logicals. All right? These are hugely important and can oftentimes result in entirely different queries, right, based off of the use of parentheses in different ways, okay? And that's something to be explored, all right? You'll notice that as you do this homework set, all right? Finally, and possibly most importantly, right, the number one thing to never ever forget is the relationship constraints, okay? Without them, your queries are utterly meaningless, all right? So it's very important to keep those in there, okay? And again, this really represents almost everything that you're going to need to do on this homework, all right? And then some, okay? The only other thing being an order by, which we've done already, right? And we can order by, again, we can't order by age, we'd have to order by the whole expression, but let's just say that we order by last name, right? We run that, and it gives us this, okay? So this is literally everything that you would need to do on this homework, right? Taking computed values, right? Naming attributes in various ways, and putting down conditions for certain, just to grab the certain data that you want, all right? Keeping in mind you got to string each new condition together with a new logical operator, all right? And always end with a semicolon, okay? But generally speaking, Access will let you know all of this stuff, all right? Access will let you know all of this stuff. Really, you want to work on following your error messages, reading them carefully, and especially reading the results of your queries, the output, so that you can essentially interpret what happened. Does it make sense? Do some reality testing, and kind of working from there, okay? So that's all I'm going to do right now in this video. I'll keep working through this. I think this is going to be a great format, just for giving you a much more efficient and functional, really, kind of slice of all this information, okay? Let me know how this goes, and if it's useful. Again, I apologize, I'm on a Rutgers-issued laptop. The fan is just cranking right now. I don't know if you can even hear that. But anyway, I'll work around some of these technical issues later, and let me know what you think, all right?